who is the Executive Director for the Dallas Sports Commission and President of the North Texas FWC Organizing Committee. Next, we have Dr. J. H. Cullum Clark, the Director of the Bush Institute-SMU Economic Growth Initiative, and Mr. Erik Mora, who is a sports director and sports anchor for Telemundo 39. And they're all here to speak about this exciting event, which is the 2026 World Cup. And the economic impact, and also this idea of soft diplomacy, because we just heard this great panel on the USMCA, and it's this idea that if we work together, we compete globally in this global market in trade. And somewhere along the point, I think someone made the decision, well, would this apply to sports, right? In attracting these world sporting events. And clearly it was successful, as we're seeing with this World Cup, which is the first time that World Cup will be hosted by 3 countries simultaneously. The closest was when South Korea and Japan hosted, but that's it, right? So this is a very unique World Cup. It's very exciting, really. And I think when the original bid was made in 2017, no one, and I think all of us fall into that, expected to have this trade war happen in 2025, right? And in the midst of this escalating trade war, we suddenly have the World Cup draw. And Mr. Mora was covering that event for Telemundo 39, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. You know, what briefly happened during the World Cup draw, but more importantly, how did the 3 presidents who were expected to be there and interact, which I think all in 2017 had anticipated this would be a very amicable event, right? But with everything going on, how did they interact? What did you observe? And was it an amicable engagement, or did you sense some animosity there?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I was not able to be in Washington, but I think you were over there. So you were the lucky ones to be over there. And I was here in Fort Worth, and I'm just going to share with you this experience. When they told us that there were going to be probably 500 people in this place just for the World Cup draw, I was like, I don't think so. I mean, 500 people, it's a lot of people. And guess what? There were almost 500 people over there. So, and people from all different nationalities. I mean, people that were cheering and wearing jerseys for the US, for Mexico, for Brazil, for Argentina, for so many different national teams. And that's basically what the World Cup means. The World Cup is not just a sporting event. A World Cup is something that goes beyond a soccer or a sporting event. And I see soccer as a bridge for communication, for interaction between different cultures, different communities, politics. And one of the big notes for all of us, the story for all of us, was seeing the 3 presidents, the 3 leaders of the host countries taking a selfie together. That was something that I have never seen before. It was just the perfect bridge, or the perfect scenario, or the perfect platform, neutral platform for all the presidents to be together for the first time in history. All right, and they all were smiling, they all were having fun, and that's what soccer is about, and that's what we're going to experience here in Dallas. We have 9 games, and we will have people from all over the world, people that will come with different cultures, different traditions, different ways of sharing to their teams, and we're going to have the chance to get involved with different cultures. I had the chance to cover the 2018 World Cup, and I had the chance to travel all around Russia, different cities, and trust me, just by looking and seeing their culture, their traditions, that's culture. And we're going to be able to experience that, and the World Cup is just going to be amazing.
Perfect, well said. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is sports. It's such a great tool for soft diplomacy, and we saw it bring together these 3 presidents. And Ms. Paula, I think you can share a little bit more on this, but I think the reason, a big motivation behind why they're so motivated to continue is this is 9 years in the making, if I'm correct. And there are extremely, it's to their benefit. There's extreme benefits economically for these three countries to continue with the World Cup. And so they're motivated to do that and to get along to a certain degree to ensure that this happens. But the comparison that I really keep hearing is that each World Cup match is going to be the equivalent of a Super Bowl. And I'd love to hear, is that actually true? Is that not true? Could you break down those concrete numbers for us? What can we anticipate from each match? And how will that trickle down to the local economies, looking at the DFW region as an example?
I'll get to that, but I'm going to comment on something that Erik said. My first World Cup, too, was in Russia. And I've been to Super Bowls, I've been to Final Fours, I've been to Olympic Games and represented our country. And definitely that is a worldwide phenomenal event as well. But I have never seen the culture and the passion and the emotion and the whole world coming together as one and celebrating the sport of soccer, but also celebrating being together. Some of the sporting events you go to and, you may see hostile fans. Nope. I was there for the final. It was France versus Croatia. And I saw more Brazilians, Mexican fans there, Russian fans, obviously, because it was in Russia, than I did France and Croatian fans. And they were just celebrating their passion and excitement. So when people ask me, what is the one thing that you are so excited for? I'm like, I have come back here and I've been to 2 World Cups. I can't explain to people what the World Cup is. You have to experience and feel it. And Erik is right in terms of us having this great opportunity to welcome the world. Overall, from an economic impact standpoint, when we started this bid in 2017, we anticipating having only 4 or 5 matches. Since then, FIFA has expanded the footprint from 32 teams to 48 teams. Originally, it was supposed to be 80 matches. There are 104 matches. Our original projections for economic impact were $400 million. Now with 9 matches, host of the International Broadcast Center, 2 base camps, 2 training venue-specific training sites, the length of time, this is a 39-day straight event with 5 rest days built in. We're projecting $1.5 to $2.1 billion. And there are 16 host cities. There are 3 countries, Canada, Mexico, and the United States hosting this World Cup. So the opportunity for each of the cities, each of the countries, is very unique and special. And this is the first time that 3 countries have hosted. But if you also look at the scope of how big this event was, I'm not sure it could be hosted by 1 country only. It's very similar to how we're set up here, structured from a DFW area. There's not 1 city here within the Metroplex that could host a World Cup because of the infrastructure, the venues, and things that are needed. I'm going to age myself a little bit, but in 2009, I was here in doing the World Cup bid for 2018 and 2022 that initially went to Russia and Qatar, and it was only a United States bid. We weren't successful, but it gave us a good base, at least, to know here's what we need to do next time. I can also remember the phone call that I got in July of 2017, said we're only asking this of 1 city. Monica, are you ready for a World Cup bid? I said, I've only been waiting 7 years. Let's go. Yes, absolutely, I want a World Cup. But I do think the coming together of the U.S. Soccer, Mexican Soccer Federation, and Canadian Soccer Federation, and how they were able to work together with the U.S. bid committee in the diversity and cultural opportunity and the expanse of knowing that we had the infrastructure across all 3 of those countries was what was able to get us to be successful this time around.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. And clearly, this was a major endeavor between the 3 countries. There is the economic motivation there. But what's really interesting as well is, we just heard again, we're having the USMCA review happening right around the same time of the World Cup. And potentially, we could have a yearly review with the USMCA. So I'm curious, Dr. Clark, if you could speak to, do you think this World Cup, speaking again of the soft diplomacy, the power of it, do you think this World Cup could have any long-term benefits where it's bringing in these 3 countries together, it's creating harmony? Could it potentially have any effect on the trade agreement? And if you have anything to add, just on the broader economic impact across the region, what do you anticipate from this World Cup?
Sure, I'll do my best for that. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course.
I'm definitely thinking that's the least about big-time soccer in the group. But I guess I can do economics and a little bit about trade. I think that you're right to emphasize soft power. I think that, and with all respect to people who represent the three governments who may have actually had to work together on a lot of complicated stuff around this, that in the grand scheme of all the things that the three national governments deal with each other, the extra work involved in planning this probably doesn't rank as that big a deal in terms of actual working together. I think the big deal is the following. I don't have to say. I think we all recognize it's a shaky time in the trade relationship between our three countries. And meanwhile, we have the reality, as Consul General Harper said, that the overwhelming majority of people in all three countries probably go through their day or their week or their year and never stop to think about the trading relationship between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And for a moment here, amidst this kind of shaky relationship, we'll have gigantic numbers of people tuning in and hearing on TV the fact that there's actually the world's biggest sporting event is happening in a cooperative way between the United States and Mexico and Canada. And that just might make an impression, right? People might, and I think that we live in a time when it's very open question whether, I'll speak primarily to people in this country, but I'll take it for granted that in Mexico and Canada there's some similar issues on the line. When a typical American stops to think about Mexico and they stop to think about Canada, is their first thought, that country is not only our immediate closest neighbors, but they are our closest allies, our closest friends, our partners for many decades through all kinds of challenges, and we that's a great relationship. I feel great about those partners. Or do they think not very pleasant things because they've been told to think that by this or that political leader at one time or another. So I think it is a pretty powerful moment for lots of people to hear a story of cooperation. Maybe it just means they sort of recast the relationship a little bit in their head. So I think that matters. The economic impact story. Can I turn to that?
Yes, absolutely.
The economic impact story. I guess I have a little bit of a yes and to what Monica said. The actual economic impact, when people do the numbers, it's thought, I think, according to what I've read preparing for this, that the net increment to 2026 GDP for the three countries put together is about $15 billion. And the host cities, if you add up all the economic impacts, like Monica talked about, of all of the cities, it amounts to more than that because, well, there's some cities that aren't hosting the World Cup. So actually, there would be less GDP actually in Chicago and San Antonio and Phoenix and so forth, because people would leave to go to these other cities. So in the grand scheme, that's pretty big money, but it's also 0.05% of the combined $35 trillion GDP of our three countries. So in quantitative terms, it's not that big a deal. But I think there's a larger point to make. And that is, let's start with Dallas and then take it national. If you're one of the leaders of Dallas, the business community, government, and so forth, if you made a list of all the things you'd want to do so that you will rank high as a host for FIFA World Cup games and for Super Bowls and for a future Olympics and for, I don't know, the movies that Taylor Sheridan is making in Fort Worth, if you wanted to do all the things you would do so that you will be a natural top choice for all of these things, well, if you just do those things, you will ensure a bright future for your city for decades to come.
Perfect.
Because you would invest in your infrastructure and you would invest in your workforce development and your people in all kinds of different ways that otherwise people might be too short-sighted to focus on. And if you take that national or indeed international to our three countries, I would say all three of our countries should want as much of our country as possible to think every day about how do we make our city, our hometown, the kind of place, relative to the size of the place, the kind of place that will actually do significant things on the world stage in the future. And if you build for doing that repeatedly year after year after year, well, then we're going to be on a good track economically.
Perfect. Yeah. Eventually, right? If we continue on that track, then it does create more revenue.
Like
Absolutely.
many World Cups, Super Bowls,
Yeah.
and everything else.
Absolutely, I agree. And I love that idea of really promoting to the world. Think of us as a region. Right? I think that's really what this World Cup is so why it's so unique. You know. And so we just heard about and thought about the economic impact as a region, but how about culturally? So, Mr. Mora, when the United States hosted the 1994 World Cup, we saw some significant growth in the sport. And some examples with that is with CONCACAF, which is the soccer association for North America, Central America, and the Caribbean states. The United States was a member since 1960 in its origin, and yet did not experience any wins in the Gold Cup until 1991, leading up to the World Cup, and then 6 more wins after the World Cup. So there's a strong correlation there, definitely. And in addition to that, this World Cup broke records. I believe 3.6 million fans attended, and it broke records for the most attendees per match. And we saw the youth sports grow significantly. Can we expect something similar for this 2026 World Cup, and not just in the United States, but really thinking competitively in North America? I think for so many years, Mexico was just kind of the dominant team in North America, and now they have some competition. What can we expect from this one?
I think soccer, after 1994, there was no too much background about soccer before 1994. Right after the World Cup, people started looking at soccer as a professional sport. A lot of people in the U.S. were thinking about soccer, and they were thinking of a foreign sport from Mexico or from Europe. And after 1994, a lot of academies started developing here in the U.S. The MLS came into the U.S. in 1996, if I'm wrong, something like that. 1997, FC Dallas, back in the past was named Dallas Burn, developed their own team. So a lot of teams started developing after the World Cup. A lot of stadiums started to be built. And I think that after this World Cup, soccer is going to go to the next level. I don't know what level that will be, but I think that after this World Cup, the U.S. national team will be one of the best teams in the world. They have really good players, they have really good academies, they have a lot of different communities with people from different backgrounds, different styles of playing soccer. And you can see, we live in Dallas, and how many soccer teams we have now. Professional, semi-professional, amateur teams. It's incredible, and every year we have a new team. You know, I work in the news in sports, and every single day I get an invitation to go and see a new team in Dallas, a new soccer team. And I don't know if you know, but from all the different sports that are growing in the United States, soccer is the one that is growing the most. And now, wait until after the World Cup. I'm pretty sure that if we have so many teams right now, we're gonna double the teams, and a lot of people, a lot of kids, a lot of students will be interested in getting into the soccer industry. It could be either as a soccer player, as a coach, or just work in different departments. And I'm pretty sure Monica can talk to us about that. But it's not only about the game, it's about what's going on around the game, and the different economic impact that you can get, not just in the games, but on restaurants, or getting into the different academies and develop your own academy. We have academies from the Mexican leagues. We have academies here in Dallas. They're looking for talent. The Mexican teams are looking for talent here in the U.S. So we have all these communities that will see the World Cup, will experience the World Cup, will follow their soccer players, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be an impact for all of them. And I see soccer in the U.S. growing, and even growing way more probably than other countries that right now are above the U.S.
Absolutely, thank you. And Monica, I saw you nodding emphatically, so I'd love for you to add, but I do have another follow-up question for you after, but go ahead.
Well, I think what I wanted to say too is what you're seeing is a lot of development, new development in stadiums. Mansfield Stadium just built. You're seeing growth in the women's side. So we have Dallas Trinity FC. That is a big goal of ours in this Men's World Cup, to also, how can we positively grow the game on the women's side, because we are in a bid cycle right now with FIFA for a Women's World Cup in 2031. But as it pertains to also competition and working alongside our friends in Canada and Mexico, you're starting to see MLS teams play Liga MX teams or competitions and tournaments being able to develop out of that. So I see a big growth in the professional soccer leagues, and maybe even how our professional soccer leagues that are continuing to be developed operate. Some may operate in relegation system as it takes place in Europe and that sort of thing. So there's big growth all the way from the grassroots side all the way up to the professional that I anticipate seeing on the soccer landscape, and integration with both Canada and Mexico.
And I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that you both highlighted that there's these leagues that are becoming cross-national. And that's really, for my next question, I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts on this. You mentioned that the bid was made in 2009 for the 2022 World Cup, which was not selected for the United States. I'm really curious, at one point they decided, okay, we weren't selected for the 2022 World Cup. What if we did a trilateral bid? It was selected. So clearly there was something that was attractive about that bid. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts. What makes us more attractive as a region versus any one individual nation state in North America to attract these major global sporting events?
I think it's part of it is strength of assets and the infrastructure that is across all cities. If you think about 104 matches, and if we had it in the United States, then that would be 16 cities within the United States that needs to host matches. We might not have the infrastructure, and one of the things that is most under fire a lot of times of hosting major events, if you go to countries, they have to build it from the ground up, build stadiums from the ground up. Some people, airports, Qatar built an entire metro system for the World Cup. We have the infrastructure in both Canada, Mexico, in the United States to be able to do that. So there are some efficiencies. I think there's also even historic what soccer means in each of these countries, especially from a Mexico standpoint, and how can we bring that together. I think the ability to reach kids at a grassroots level across not just one country, but all of North America was something that was very appealing to FIFA as well. It's been very interesting and a great opportunity for us to get to work with our other colleagues in both Monterrey, Guadalajara, Mexico City, as well as Vancouver and Toronto, of the ability to be able to exchange ideas, of hear how we operate events on a larger scale. Yes, the Super Bowls, the Final Fours, Olympic Games, Canada has hosted before as well. Mexico has, but it's been a long time. But to be able to share those ideas and collaborate, knowing that our governments, both on the federal and our individual state levels, operate much differently, but still being able to take things from one another to learn has been a joy, and we've developed those relationships. I'm actually going to Monterrey here in about 2-3 weeks to talk on a panel of how can we continue to collaborate after this World Cup is over, and maybe have them, they're interested in what is this sports commission model that cities have that benefit, Dallas or North Texas region, but there's sports commissions all through the country. They also want to know, how can we create something here in Monterrey or in cities within Mexico so that we can maybe evolve into that model and have greater economic impact and benefit through sport for our city and their regions.
Absolutely, thank you. I have one more question for Dr. Clark, and then we're going to turn the questions to the audience, but I am very interested in hearing your opinion on this as well. Just months prior to the World Cup, we're suddenly seeing a significant increase in global conflict for countries that will be involved with the World Cup. We saw a concerted effort between the U.S. and Mexican governments in removing the cartel leader known as El Mencho for one of the most violent cartels in Mexico. And immediately after, we saw 48 hours of violent protests from the cartel leaders there. And that was really, it was across the nation, but concentrated in Jalisco, where I think they'll be hosting 6 matches, is that right, in Guadalajara? And we're also seeing this escalating conflict with Iran. And because of that, Iran qualified to compete in the World Cup, and justifiably so. They've been concerned, and at first they threatened to withdraw, then they threatened to boycott all the games that would take place in the United States. All were set to play, and they were set to play all their games in the United States, and the most recent request is that all of the matches will be moved to Mexico. We haven't since then heard from FIFA if they've made a decision yet. Still waiting to hear on that, but my question for you is, with all this happening right before the World Cup, is the World Cup the perfect time to bring some harmony when we need it the most? Or is this extremely misfortunate that all of this is happening right before the World Cup? What do you think?
Gosh, I don't know. I'm an economist, not a...
You know what? She asks tougher interview questions than Erik does. And he's a reporter.
That is a tough question. It's a great question. I don't know. We tend to deal in, data, what actually tends to produce harmony. I'm pretty convinced that actually by the literature that suggests that over the long haul, that countries that do a lot of trade and a lot of economic interaction with each other do actually experience more harmony as a result. It's not perfect, and maybe there's some literature that says countries that trade with each other a lot never ever go to war with each other. That's not 100% true historically, but it's directionally very true. So as far as I'm concerned, the more economic interaction and integration, the better. But as for this exact moment, there's so much mess out there. Who knows what will happen? But my strong supposition is that whatever happens with the actual Iranian team and their immediate, entourage traveling around, probably, I don't know. Never say never. I'll bet you it's a big nothing burger, as they say sometimes. It's fine. Whatever else is going on out there, there's lots of other stuff in the news that actually is not fine. My guess is that this will be a wonderful experience for everyone involved, and people will feel good about it, and there won't be a lot of ugliness that becomes a big news story. Hope I'm right.
Yeah. Does anyone want to add before we turn to the audience?
About that question?
Yeah.
International harmony.
I saw some strong reactions, so I'm curious.
Well, I remember every time that I cover an event, there is always issues. Something is going on. And I think that this is not an exception, but I think everything is going to be okay. I think during the World Cup, as Monica said, it's a different atmosphere. I mean, you get the chance to experience something different, and it's hard to explain. I have been, let's say, 7 or 8 Super Bowls, have been in World Series, and many different events, just as Monica, but in a World Cup with all people from all different parts of the world, trust me, it's different. They come together for the same goal, which is have fun, support your team, meet people, get friends. So I think it's going to be fine. I don't know if Iran is going to come and play here. I see it could be pretty difficult for FIFA to move the games, but they're going to find a way. Gianni Infantino, he knows how to handle things, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to find a way of working this out.
I'll bet you, for what it's worth, the American people overwhelmingly have the good sense to realize that whatever differences the United States government may have with the Iranian government, that it's not the fault of the players on the field.
Absolutely. Right. Did you want to add anything?
Not necessarily about that topic, but it does relate into, as we're working through this World Cup, there's a lot of work that's being done from the consulates and at the embassies, with economic development corporations, trying to work with these countries that are coming in, identify even like businesses that may be looking to move headquarters here. How can suppliers benefit through opportunities with FIFA? So even to the state level and Office of the Governor and Economic Development Corporations, they're really working to identify opportunities in other countries, and how can businesses from other countries coming in work together here with through this World Cup effort. So it's been very refreshing to kind of see some of the collaboration that has been going on because this World Cup is happening.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a great note to end on. Before we turn to our audience, do we have a few questions? Yes. Microphone, yes. Coming.
Slowly but surely.
This is basically related to what we've been talking about. There is about, in my understanding, at least 12 countries, maybe more, that are required to pay $15,000. The fans are required to pay $15,000 to get a visa to come to the United States to watch the game. Can you tell Monica, this is probably addressed to you, can you tell us about where we are on that?
Yeah, I know very basic information. The government has set up the White House task force for the World Cup, so we meet on a weekly basis every Wednesday. We get the opportunity to talk with the Department of State, all of the departments usually, and the visa process and how long is it taking. It's incredibly important for us, not only for the teams and spectators that are coming, but we're hosting the International Broadcast Center, and you've got 3,500 broadcasters and media and staff that we need to ensure are getting here. We have been told, the data that we have been told and shared with is that the processing time has shortened a lot. We've been able to see the numbers, and it's been a month or two since we've been shared with, but here are the number of visas that are being processed per country, so that we can see how does that match up to maybe the teams that are supposed to be playing here, or even the teams that are supposed to be staying here from a base camp. For us, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can tell, that the Department of State can tell us, okay, you're going to have 100,000 people from England here for their first match versus Croatia, because they can't say where they're going, but it gives us a pretty good indication of how many visas are being processed. So where is the load? What are some of the days that may be heavier here? We already have an idea based off of what our matchups are, but it gives us a little more efforts in planning. But everything that we see from a visa standpoint is that they're processing them in under a month.
What about the $15,000?
I don't know anything about the amount of money that has to be, we're not a part of that, so we let the federal government figure that piece out.
Go ahead.
I need a mic. Because of this, I think this is the perfect panel to ask this type of question. When you were talking about how soccer, football impacts the entire world, I remember when the Megan Rapinoe USA soccer team made a stand, and I called my family into the room. I said, they're going to change how women's sports is recognized around the world, right? And if you notice that just started happening in the WNBA also. So from your perspective, have you seen more respect and attention and support given to women's athletics since that team made such a big impact?
Yes, I mean, across the board, probably, I would say, I don't know the necessary year that we're talking about, but I can say easily from 2022, 2023, even when we hosted the NCAA Women's Final Four here, you started to see a shift in women's sports. What brands, what corporations are looking at how they want to support, how they want to lean in, and even maybe all the way back to 2017, seeing that growth, seeing who's watching women's sports on TV, what the broadcasters and what those broadcast rights are going for, what sponsorships are even going for in women's sports, the number of leagues that are developing around women's sports. I mean, here in Dallas or the North Texas area, you've got now not only Dallas Trinity FC, but you've got the Dallas Pulse, the volleyball team, obviously the Dallas Wings, and the growth that is taking shape there. What their broadcast rights are, new facilities that are taking shape. There's some other teams that are and other leagues that are looking to get off. You've got 2 women's soccer leagues in the USL as well as the NWSL. So a lot of growth taking shape from a women's side, and I don't see that slowing down.
May I add something really fast? Just as a father of 3 daughters, I will just say it's pretty exciting. It's interesting. Sometimes there's just phenomena out there. You go year after year, maybe even decade after decade, and things don't really change that much. And then suddenly there's some explosive, discontinuous change that nobody saw coming. And yes, Megan Rapinoe and her teammates, the excitement they created, the excitement that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and others created in women's basketball. I mean, it was just like a fireball, like an explosive change in the whole sports scene that I didn't remember reading a lot of articles about people predicting that we were about to see that. My good friend, I don't know if he's here tonight, who is the main owner of the Trinity FC, was telling me about the staggering growth in the value of women's sports franchises, basketball, soccer, and others. So we're seeing just a gigantic change out there, and it's certainly very much guy fans as well as women fans. I mean, we're all into it. Pretty exciting. I mean, the world is really changing there, and I think it'll change our culture in a lot of ways, as Title IX did in the past.
Yeah, and also in the media perspective, I remember a few years back, we didn't touch women's soccer that much, to be honest, or any other sports besides the Olympics, probably, or the Women's World Cup. Nowadays, we cover the Dallas Trinity FC every single week or every 2 weeks. We bring the players to the studios. We just did a story about this volleyball team, which has a lot of players from different nationalities, which is pretty cool. And also, this is something really interesting. When we go to the games, people, the fans, the audience, ask us to talk about women's sports, specifically the Liga MX for the women's league, also Dallas Trinity FC. So we as media, we have to touch more topics about women's in sports. So it's going to keep growing a lot. I'm pretty sure of that.
Well, I hate to stop the conversation, but we also are respectful of dinner times, and I want to thank this incredible panel for joining us. So a round of applause. And invite our friend again, Tiffany Mullen with NASCO, to join us to close us out. Again, she's going to thank our sponsors and everybody. And as she walks over, a lot of you all know her colleague, Rachel, who is such an incredible friend to so many of us. She suffered a very great loss recently. And so if there's a time you want to support this incredible duo, the time is now. So I know Tiffany won't say anything, but I hope that you consider your support to NASCO very greatly, because they're a very powerful duo and a part of our family. So let's help them out in a time of need. So join NASCO.
Thank you. Now I'm going to start crying, but yeah. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I know that we're running up on our time. I've been asked to give some closing remarks, kind of to bring this all together for us. At first, I want to thank all the sponsors. This has been an amazing set of panels, great information, and 2 things that you often don't put together, right? You get the sports and the trade negotiations. And the convergence of that, the biggest sporting event in the world at a time, hosted by North America at a time when North America has a volatile and very dynamic situation brewing with trade negotiations. As I've been sitting here thinking, and as I was driving here tonight, I was thinking about kind of the parallels of sports and trade negotiations, because there are several. I jotted down some notes. So the rules, it's rules-based. The trust, the accountability, the individual strengths contributing to the greater good. the shared goals, the shared vision, the competition. So I would submit to you that we've heard about North America as a region, as allies, but we are Team North America. And never before has that been more important. And we are playing in our figurative World Cup and have been for 32 years since NAFTA. And we have been winning at that World Cup year after year after year. And now we find that our team dynamic has been a little bit damaged. We've had some rules changed, some rules broken. We've had some bad calls. We've had some trash talking going on. So to date, I don't think we've had any physical altercations, but I'm not going to put that past us. We still have some time. Someone's probably going to end up in a penalty box at one point or other. I'll give you a hockey reference, Susan. But really, we're all kind of wanting a big timeout right now, right? And we don't get a timeout. And so what do the best teams on earth do when they don't get timeouts? They dig deep. They get their grit, their resilience. They fall back on their training. They fall back on their teammates. I would suggest to you that we are all teammates in this room. Our governments are teammates. Our legislative bodies are teammates. Our agencies are teammates. Our infrastructure is a teammate. Our borders are teammates. Our education systems are teammates. Energy, a teammate. I could go on and on and on. And we are lucky because we have the very best teammates on the face of the earth. We are the most formidable economic team that the world has ever seen. So I think I would just like to close tonight to say, don't lose sight of that. And in an effort to support our World Cup hosts, Monica and all the work that she's done, and North America and all the work that we've done together on the World Cup, and to give us a boost into our NAFTA review, not renegotiation, and NAFTA review, I would just say let's do North America on 3, guys. 1, 2, 3, North America!